Right, so welcome to lecture 14, 210 fluid mechanics. In the previous lecture, we talked about stream function. That is where we stopped the lecture. And I mentioned to you about a very nice trick, a very neat trick that we can use to solve problems in fluid mechanics. That is the stream function approach. So I'm sure, well, let's quickly recap. So we mentioned that we have to solve so this trick only works for flow fields which are in 2 dimensions. Okay. So the flow is happening in a plane. And there are many situations where you can approximate that the flow is 2 dimensional, although the third dimension physically exists, but there is no change in the third dimension. So there's only we can approximate the flow as 2 dimensional. So in case of such 2 dimensional flow fields, assuming that in this case the flow is incompressible, the continuity equation is del u by del x plus del v by del y is equal to 0. Okay, so we have two unknowns here, u and v, and this equation has to be identically satisfied. Now we also have the Navier-Stokes equation, which has, since we're talking about 2D, so it has two equations hidden in it. It's a vector equation. So we have an equation for u and an equation for v. And it also brings in another unknown, which is pressure. So we have three equations, three unknowns. So we can, it's a well-posed system, so we can solve it. Right. So the nice trick, the neat trick that we talked about was that instead of solving for these two unknowns u and v, we can define a scalar field which is called a stream function. So instead of finding two vector components u and v, which are both functions of x and y, we can find instead psi stream function as a function of x and y. And the reason we can define such a function is because the continuity equation has to be satisfied. So this is defined in such a way so that this by its definition is satisfied. So we define psi such that u is equal to del psi by del y and v is equal to minus del psi by del x. So if we have this kind of a definition for psi, then you can see that if you substitute this definition for psi in the continuity equation, it's automatically satisfied. So we don't have to work with the continuity equation. We start working with psi. So we get rid of one unknown and we get rid of one equation. That's very common technique in mathematics. Right. So now from this point onwards, you can only work with psi. No need to work with u and v separately. So once you solve for psi, the mathematical scalar function, scalar field psi, then you can get your u and v by using this definition of psi. So we will definitely use this later for solving problems. But I just wanted to tell you at this point that this stream function approach is very neat and handy. So this is where we stopped. So before I actually tell you a situation where we can use this stream function, I would want to discuss about this stream function, particularly because it's a very important mathematical object which also has a physical significance in fluid mechanics. So let's talk about, so we'll put a pause here and we'll start talking about stream function, and then we'll come back to this use of stream function for solving Navier-Stokes equation. So let's discuss stream function. So the first thing I would want to tell you is that the stream function psi is constant along a streamline. Okay. So we talked about streamlines. So streamlines are those hypothetical lines that we draw um, at any instant in a fluid flow. So the velocity is always tangential to the streamline. So if you know the velocity field everywhere, then you can draw streamlines so that the lines are always tangential to the velocity field. So these are streamlines, and we also talked about the equation. So since the infinitesimal length vector is proportional to the velocity component, so we can write the equation of streamline as dx by u equal to dy by v, where dx and dy are, so your dr vector is written as dxi plus dyj. So dr is some it's a length vector along the streamline. Okay, so this was the definition. So this was the equation for finding out the streamlines. So if I just play around with this, so we can write u times dy minus v times dx, that's equal to 0. Okay. Now let's substitute the definition of streamline, stream function, sorry. So we know that u is given as del psi by del y, and v is minus del psi by del x. Right. So what we have done is we have started with the equation for streamline, and we are seeing what happens if we work with the stream function approach. Okay, so this becomes the total differential of psi. So del psi by, well, I can write that. Let's do another step. So we have del psi by del y dy plus del psi by del x dx. And we know that this is nothing but d of psi, because psi is a function of x and y. So using chain rule, this is what we can write, and this becomes 0. And remember, we started with the equation for a streamline. So that means that we are talking about a given streamline. And what we have found out is that d psi is 0. So what this means is d psi is 0 on a streamline. And that is the reason we call it stream function. So the word stream comes from the fact that the stream function is constant along a streamline. Okay. So if I actually told you psi is a function of x and y, if you knew this mathematical function and you had to draw the streamlines, all you had to do was put this equal to some constant value, like for example, this equal to 0. So that will give you one contour, one curve. Then you put this equal to 1, psi x y equal to 1. That gives you another curve. So you'll get different curves, and each curve is a streamline. Right. So that's a major interpretation, a major mathematical interpretation of your stream function sigma. Let's give it number. So that's the first discussion on stream function. Is this clear? Are there any questions? Well, if there's no question, then we will move on. Now the second interpretation for stream function, and this is the physical interpretation or physical significance. So what we'll do is we will take two streamlines. Let's take them like this. So these are two streamlines. So we have psi equal to psi1 and psi equal to psi2 on the two streamlines. So streamlines, you know that psi is constant. So we have taken two constant values and drawn two streamlines. And what we do is we take 2 points and draw a straight line. Well, in fact, this is a length vector ds. So ds, let's call it, so ds vector is dx comma dy. So we call this is dx and this is dy. So it's a 2D plane. So we have taken a ds vector, the length of which is ds. So we can call it like this. The ds vector has directions dx and dy. So dx and dy are positive numbers. Now what we are, well, in this situation, they are positive numbers. So what we're doing is we're trying to draw physical significance. So what we'll do is we'll try to find out what is the volume flow rate through this ds line. Now remember that volume flow rate is defined on areas, right? But since we're talking about 2 dimensions, so we can think of the third dimension as of unit length. Okay, so it's like inside the plane you have a unit length of this, so you can extrude this whole thing by 1 unit. So that will then ds times 1 will become an area. Let me also draw the unit normal to this. So I'm interested in finding out what is the volume flow rate Q through this area, which is ds times 1. Okay, because one is always interested to find out how much flow is happening through a given area in fluid mechanics. Okay, although the area is hypothetical, it's imaginary, but still we are interested in that. Well, let's call it dq because we are talking about flow through a ds surface. It's an infinitesimal surface we're talking about, so the flow rate will also be infinitesimal. So this dq, as we know, is written as the velocity field v dot n times dA. So for a given area, the volume flow rate is v dot n times dA. Now we're working with the stream function approach, so we can write the vector v as the x component, which is del psi by del y, and then the y component, which is minus del psi by del x. So this is my v vector, and this is dotted with n. Let's see if I can write it here. Now the n vector from coordinate geometry, we can see so n vector will have an x component which is proportional to dy by ds, and a y component which actually will be negative of dx by ds. You can work it out yourself. So if a vector which has components dx and dy, then the normal to that will be this from simple coordinate geometry. And we also have a ds in the denominator because this ds, I mean, it's not a unit vector we're talking about. So you will have to find the cos theta and sin theta, you have to divide by the hypotenuse, which is ds. So I will write it down here. And then we have the area, dA. dA is nothing but the ds length times 1, because we're talking about unit depth. It's a 2D situation. So everything in the third dimension can be assumed as 1 for calculating areas. Right, so let's simplify this. So I've simplified this, I've taken the dot product, and this is what we get. So ds can be cancelled. So what we have finally is d psi. So we've again got d psi, but this time this value of d psi is equal to dq. Okay, that's very interesting. So what we have found out is that if we have two streamlines in the flow, and I take any area which joins those two streamlines, then the volume flow rate through that area is equal to the difference in the value of the stream function. So that's a very important physical significance of knowing the stream function values, because if I know the stream function values and I have to find the flow rate through any cross section area, then all I have to do is I have to take the difference of the stream function from the initial to the end point of the area. Right. In this case, we can see that if, since it's d psi, so if psi 2 is greater than psi 1, then flow is, so we drew a normal, so the flow is from left to right. In this situation. Now, if for the same choice of normal, if we found out that psi 2 was less than psi 1, then d psi will be negative, so dq will be negative. Now, dq being negative physically does not make sense. You can't have a volume flow rate of negative, but what this means is that it will be in the opposite direction. And if d psi was negative or psi 2 was less than psi 1, then your flow will be happening from right to left. But in this case, if d psi is positive, then flow is from left to right. Is that clear? It's a very important idea in fluid mechanics and very commonly used. So one should have a very strong hold over this stream function. So please feel free to ask questions, although the lecture is being recorded, but it's okay. I mean, the questions always help enrich the
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Actually, these all cases came from the definition where we divided the components u and y as rho x, rho 5, what we call stream function. We give the components, right? But where, how did those come? We didn't know how they were defined. Like after taking them into the consideration, we got that the function is constant along streamlines and the other case physical significance. Actually, on what basis we have defined those components, sir?
You mean on what basis have we defined the components del psi
U
by
and
del
V.
y and del psi by del x?
Yes, 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 sir.
So it's a definition. So let's go back to the first slide. So what I told you was this is a definition. So I should put actually 3 lines here. Okay, so see, basically we are working with u and v, and psi is a scalar function. So I am defining psi in such a way so that its y partial derivative will become equal to u, and its x partial derivative with a negative sign will become equal to v.
It's just to solve, or is there any reason so that we have taken?
It is just to if it's for mathematical convenience, because if we do that, then instead of finding u and v, we can only find psi.
Yes, yes, I get.
Okay, but it will not be always that you can define a psi. You can only define a psi if your continuity equation is satisfied.
Okay.
Okay, if for some flow field, let's say which is compressible, then this psi is not defined, because this continuity equation that we have written here is only valid for incompressible flows.
Okay.
Okay.
Then for compressible liquids, what would compressible, sir?
For compressible fluids, you have to work in a different way. But I will not go there. I just want to stay with the incompressible flows for now.
Okay, okay.
Okay, because
Okay.
most of the flows that we deal with can be considered incompressible. So this theory is nicely usable for most fluids, most flow situations.
Okay. Thank you.
It's a very good question, because there's always a confusion as to why do we define psi like this. For mathematical convenience, instead of solving for u and v, two unknowns, we only solve for psi. But the reason psi can be defined is because if we define psi like this, then continuity equation by default by automatically satisfied. We don't have to work with the continuity equation separately. Any other questions?
No, sir.
All right, so let's move on. Good. So please keep asking questions. It's always good. Let's do an example. So let's do some exercise with stream function. So this is taken from the book. It's example 4.7. So we have a flow field given to us. So the x component of velocity, which is u, is some constant a times x squared minus y squared, and the v velocity is minus 2axy. W velocity is 0. So it's a two-dimensional flow field. There is no velocity in the third direction. So we have been asked to find psi if it exists. Now this is important. If psi exists, only then you can find it. So first we have to figure out whether a psi exists or not. Then we'll start figuring out how to find it. So remember, we just talked about that psi can only be, psi only works if the continuity equation is satisfied, because the way we define psi is such that it automatically satisfies the continuity equation. Now for this given flow field, let us check if it satisfies the continuity equation. So for this u and v, let us see if divergence of u is actually 0, u vector. So this becomes del u by del x. So let's substitute u and v and check. It's a partial derivative with respect to x. So it's the y square term will become a 0 in the first case. And in the second del by del y term, we get minus 2a and then x. Okay, so we see that this is actually 0. So this means continuity is satisfied. So if continuity is satisfied, then we can define a psi the way we did earlier. Okay, so this implies psi can be defined. So psi can be defined for this mathematical velocity field that's given to us, which is this u and v. Okay, now that we figured out that psi can be defined, let's find it. So we defined we define psi in such a way so that u is equal to del psi by del y. So this becomes since u is x square minus y square. Okay, so this we'll call 1. This we'll call 2. I'll just remove this part because it's not necessary. So we have to find, we want to find the scalar field psi so that these two equations are satisfied. So let's start integrating one. I'm sure you have worked with these functions of multiple variables in your engineering mathematics course. So integrating one, it's a partial derivative, so remember that. So psi becomes, the first term is x is simply a constant because it's partial derivative. It becomes ax square y. And for the second term, we have to integrate y square. So that becomes a y cube by 3. Plus you have a constant which could be a function of x. Because the best way is you check. If you differentiate 3 with respect to y partially, you should get 1. Is this clear? All right. Now what we do is we will differentiate this with respect to x. So this will give us del psi by del x. So the first term we differentiate x squared, that becomes a 2x. In the second term, since there is no x, so this becomes a 0. And the third term, since that's only a function of x, fx, so that becomes f prime x. F prime is df by dx because f is only a function of x. So this we'll call 4. So now what we'll do is we'll compare number 2 and number 4 because that is where we are headed to. So if I equate del psi by del x on both sides, what we get is 2axy is 2axy plus f prime x. So this means f prime x is 0, which means fx is some constant c. This all this was just to find the constant function f. Okay, so now I can write my psi. So for 3, I can simply substitute fx equal to c, and that gives my psi function. All right, so this is our function psi. That's it. So job done. So we have found out the stream function psi for this situation. It's always good to plot it. Now I told you how to use Mathematica or Matplotlib in Python to plot these functions. So you can use some sort of a contour plot to plot this scalar function psi and visualize it. Or you can, if you are patient enough, then you can actually, for different values of psi, because remember I told you that streamlines are nothing but different values of psi. So here, if I substitute psi equal to 0, then that gives me one streamline. If I substitute psi equal to 1, that gives me another streamline. So I can draw these and visualize how this flow looks like. So I can do it here. Okay, so if you were to plot this, now this is for c equal to 0. Sorry, we should. I haven't drawn it very well. Let me draw it again. So each angle is 60°. That's a regular figure. So you have now if I draw the streamlines, they look like this. In fact, I think we already had when I demonstrated the use of quiver plots, I had drawn these streamlines or I had drawn the quiver plots for this velocity field for you using both Python as well as Wolfram Alpha. We have seen these figures. But we did not use the stream function approach. We actually used the velocity field that was given to us, and we had drawn the quiver plots, and they look like this. And now what we have done is we have found out the stream function for this velocity field, and we have drawn the stream function, and that again looks like this, because ultimately your velocity field is tangential to the stream function. Okay, so we discussed that this can be thought of, I mean, this kind of mathematical function can be used to find if you have a wedge. Just consider only this part of the figure. If you have a wedge, this blue wedge, which is a 60-degree wedge, and your flow enters tangentially, then because of the wedge, it will turn and leave tangentially again. So this kind of a flow field can be mathematically written using the stream function. All right. Any questions? Right. There was a question. What happens if we have compressible flows? Incompressible flows, I just told you that you can define the stream function like this. But what happens in compressible flows? So what I'll do is I will not answer that question. We can still define. So I'll tell you that it's a statement. You have to find out how. Okay. So you have to think of how a stream function is defined and what sort of manipulation I can do mathematically so that I can also define a stream function for compressible flows, but which are steady, so that time del rho by del t is not there. And what I'll do now is going to be a strong hint as to how to find this stream function. Let me so what I'm doing now is well, I'm answering a question. Can we define stream function for two-dimensional polar flows, or I should say, 2D flows defined using polar coordinates. So remember, in polar coordinates, the divergence of velocity, so the velocity is given as u r and u theta components in two dimensions. You have a radial, if you have a plane, then you have a center point. So you define a coordinate of a point P as the distance and distance r and the angle theta it makes from this line. So it has r comma theta. You have done this in your JE preparations. Uh, and we also have a unit vector r hat and a unit vector theta hat. So we can define things in terms of polar coordinates. So if we define things in terms of polar coordinates rather than Cartesian coordinates, can we still define a stream function? Let's see. Okay, so divergence of u vector in the polar coordinates is given as 1 by r plus 1 by r del by del theta of u theta. Okay, so this we discussed a couple of lectures ago. I didn't tell you, I didn't derive it for you, but I gave you a reference to one of my previous lectures that you can see, and you can derive these things yourself. But this is how you define the divergence of a vector u if it's defined in the polar coordinates rather than Cartesian coordinates. Okay, so if the continuity equation is satisfied, because remember we're talking about this, I mean the whole reason we define a stream function is so that we don't have to work with continuity equation. So stream function by its definition should satisfy the continuity equation. Okay. So this, if del dot u is equal to 0, then what we get is this thing has to be 0. Okay. So 1 by r can be cancelled. So we can multiply the whole thing by r. So this is what we get. Now remember, I have to define psi in such a way now that this equation is satisfied. And you can see it's very similar, except that instead of having ur, you have an rur here. What I can do is I can define my psi in such a way such that r times ur is del psi by del theta, and u theta is minus del psi by del r. Very similar, except that earlier you had, instead of rur, you had ux or just u. This time we have r times ur because we want to make sure that this whole thing will be automatically satisfied. So let's check. If I substitute this into the continuity equation, what we get is del by del r, and then r times ur is del theta, del psi by del theta, and u theta is minus del psi by del r, and this identically is 0. Okay. So what we've done is we have been able to, remember, it's a mathematical trick. There's nothing physical about defining a stream function. We are doing all this to mathematically satisfy the continuity equation automatically. So this definition works. Okay. So what this means is your ur is 1 by r del psi by del theta, and your u theta is minus del psi by del r. So in polar coordinates, if you define a stream function using this, then you can work with this stream function in polar coordinates. Okay, so don't be impulsive and write in polar coordinates, write ur as simply del psi by del theta. You have to have that 1 by r as well. And dimensionally also it looks all right. And you can check yourself then with this definition, the same thing, d psi will be 0 along a streamline, and the difference between two streamlines, that is psi 2 minus psi 1, will be equal to the volume flow rate for that situation. So everything else will work fine. Okay, and you can use the same idea for the question I gave you just a few seconds ago, this one. So you write the continuity equation for steady incompressible flows, and you try to define psi in such a way so that this thing and divergence of u is identically satisfied for those. Of course, I mean, you keep Cartesian coordinates, don't use polar coordinates, but this will work fine. Any questions? So I would want to discuss a new topic, but we don't have enough time. So what I'll do is I will just talk about it. I will just draw a couple of pictures and give you some sort of a feel, and then we will rigorously talk about it in the next lecture. So the next topic I want to talk about is vorticity. So have you ever heard of this word vorticity? Anyone? It means it's a new term. Okay, and all our discussion that we'll do for this term vorticity, it's a property of flow. I mean, you have heard this word vortex. It denotes some sort of rotation. Tornadoes have vortices. You see vortices that are formed when there is a hurricane. It's some sort of rotation that we're talking about. Okay, we'll talk all this in two-dimensional flows. Although the term is valid for fully three-dimensional flows as well, but our discussion will be limited to 2D flows because it's much more convenient mathematically to deal with these 2D flows. So I'll write this down in 2D flows. So our discussion will be 2D flows only. Okay, so let me give you an example of a velocity field. We've been talking about velocity fields. So let me give you an example and then ask you what will happen to particles if they were going through that velocity field. Okay, so this is a quiver plot, let us say, of the velocity field. Of course, I have not taken too many points, but I have taken a few points, and on those points, I have drawn the velocity vectors, and the length is proportional to the magnitude of velocity. So let me ask you this question. Do you think there is any rotation happening in this flow? Is it clear that this is, I mean, do you understand? This is a velocity field. So I've drawn the velocity at different points. It's a vector field. It's a quiver plot, as we discussed earlier. So let's see how we figure out if there's any rotation. So what you do is you take a stick. You take a stick and you put it in the flow. I can do that. I mean, if this is the velocity field for water, I can put a wooden stick and leave it like this and then see what happens to it. So now you tell me, do you think there's any rotation happening in the flow?
Yes, sir.
Yes. If I was to leave the stick like this, will this stick always stay vertical or will this stick rotate?
It will rotate.
It'll rotate, right? So the bottom part of the stick, which is this one, will after some time would have moved here. It will go from here to here, but the center part would have gone here, and the top part would have been gone here. So the stick will look like this after some time, after a few instants. The stick has rotated. Okay, so this flow field, whatever we have in example number 1, has some sort of vorticity in it. It has some rotation in it. Okay, we are just talking very intuitively right now, in a very hand wavy sense. I'm not quantifying anything right now. Okay. So let's take another example. It's a uniform velocity in x direction. Now what do you think? Is there any vorticity in the flow?
No, sir.
No, I guess.
No, because if you put a stick like this, it will just keep moving. It will not rotate. If you keep a stick like this, it will again keep moving. It will not rotate. So there is no vorticity. So we'll stop here, and I will continue tomorrow with a more with a more quantifiable definition of vorticity, and we'll see how we'll use it in fluid mechanics. It's a very important topic. Right, so we'll stop the recording here, and in case anybody has a question, I'm happy to answer those.